Hey everyone, Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast. It's terrific to have your company for another episode of the show. Now, today I want to discuss a really important shift that can occur in your business. It's very subtle, but it's very powerful. And if you get it right, it can absolutely transform your practice, your life, your team, your culture, your results, everything. And that shift is transitioning from policy based decision making to principle based decision making because most practices rely on policies to manage behavior. But what if it's the wrong approach? What if the key to a thriving practice isn't having more rules, but having stronger principles? So, this episode is inspired by investor and thinker Ray Dalio. And in it, we're going to explore how to lead with clarity, create alignment, and make better decisions, not through control, but through shared understanding. So, let's get into it. Okay, so the big problem is that most dental practices rely on really rigid policies to manage people as well as situations. And the problem with policies is that they can be inflexible, they can be demotivating. And what happens when you're the patient on the end of those policies, it can feel like that little Britain skit that says the computer says no. And so the whole shift is about understanding that principles can guide decision making and empower your team because ultimately we want our team to engage their hearts and their minds, but we can't do that if they're given didactic rules to follow that they can't vary from or they can't make allowances for depending on the situation. Principles give them the ability to make decisions, to operate within some guidelines, but to work out what's best for the business, to work out what's best for the team, or to work out what's best for the patient, knowing that there are principles and guidelines in place. And so one of Ray Dalio's favorite quotes is principles are fundamental truths that serve as the foundation for the behavior that gets you what you want out of life. So, as I said, policies often fall really short. They come about from reacting to problems or trying to control behavior, and they treat the symptoms, not the causes. And when you're thinking about business, you've got to look upstream to where the cause is because if you're treating the symptoms and you're applying policies here, there, and everywhere, it's a band aid solution. It's not addressing the real issue, but they often can feel very punitive as well. And what it assumes is that people can't be trusted to think, which means they're only trusted to do what we tell them to do. Now, that absolutely kills autonomy because no one's ever going to be brave enough to step up or to step out of that system. And you're going to inadvertently train your team to come and ask you what to do the whole time. And so your autonomy of your team is absolutely killed. And if you want to have any hope of scaling up, if you want to have any hope of creating a practice and a life, you need a team that can think for themselves and make decisions like you, even in your absence. And too many policies, too many rules, too many regulations absolutely kills that off. Now, the other thing that gets killed off in all of this, though, is morale. Because one of the things that we know that creates great culture, great morale, great job satisfaction is having a degree of autonomy in your role. So if you want to have a demotivated team, if you want to have a team that can't think for themselves, if you want to be the person that's always the answer guy or the answer girl, then have overly restrictive policies that are punitive in nature and assume people can't think. And in a fast moving environment like dentistry where everything's changing right now, these rigid rules can be bottlenecks in your business and they can actually hinder your growth. Okay, so what are principles? What are we really talking about here? Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, principles are timeless truths that help you make good decisions in different contexts. And they're about why you do things, not just what to do. They're about focusing on objectives and outcomes and trying to understand where we're getting to. And it allows people to navigate to that objective without necessarily following the prescribed path that you've laid down for them. And it helps team members act consistently towards a goal without needing to be micromanaged. So, what that means for you is greater freedom as well. So, instead of having a cancellation policy, a better principle could be to respect everyone's time, yours and theirs. And we all know that there's lots of scenarios where a patient turns up late to an appointment with a very, very good reason. Maybe they've had a sickness at home. Maybe they've been caught up in a motor vehicle accident or whatever it is. But if you apply policies rigidly, oftentimes you don't have any empathy. You lose that humanity. And what that can create is a very transactional relationship rather than a relationship with the patient. Okay, so what are the benefits of principles based leadership? Well, firstly, it encourages ownership and responsibility within your team. It allows your team to make decisions. It allows you to delegate outcomes, not just tasks. And what that creates in addition to that is a values based culture. If you can really be clear about what you're trying to achieve and empower your team to go forth and achieve it, then as long as they're living by the values and the principles of the business, then how you get there becomes almost a moot point. Obviously, there are limits to that. There are certainly boundaries in place. But if you give people the autonomy to make decisions, to work towards an outcome, A, they'll be happier. B, you'll get better results and you'll learn things you didn't even know that you could manage before. And what this does is it creates flexibility, but in a structured way. It sounds contradictory in a sense, but your team can operate in a framework and they can freestyle within that framework. So your team can adapt to scenarios without having to follow a rigid policy that as soon as the new scenario comes up, that policy is out of date. Now, the other benefit of principle-based leadership is it enhances trust. And trust is one of the foundations of solid teamwork. If you think about Patrick Lencioni's work and his 5 dysfunctions of a team, the baseline dysfunction is the absence of trust. So principles-based leadership enhances trust. And so if you're basically saying to the team, here's the why, you can figure out the how, you have trust in their decision-making abilities, you have trust in their ability to get the job done, and you have trust that they will get the job done. So it begs the question, how do you develop practice principles? Well, I guess step number 1 would be to reflect on past decisions. What worked and what didn't? And why didn't they work? And why didn't they? And so really reflect on those decisions and analyze them critically without getting too emotional about it or looking for justifications. Have a good look at those and think about what didn't work and the reasons why. And of course, once you've extracted those lessons, you might be thinking about, well, what truth guided that good decision? Or what truth was missing in that poor decision? And then turn those into principles, which could be short and memorable and really actionable. And of course, after that, share them with the team. Embed those principles in the onboarding, embed those principles in the meeting, embed those principles into the culture of the team. And soon enough, everyone will be living by those principles. So, of course, once you've articulated your principles, you want to use them actively. You want to use them in decision making. You want to use them in feedback. You want to use them in leadership moments. And of course, some examples of principles could be always communicate early and often. Don't avoid tough conversations. Run towards them. And we aim for excellence, not perfection. So, a final thought: policies are easy, but principles are powerful. And so, we want to shift from control to clarity. So, my aim for you, my hope for you is you're going to start documenting your leadership and your team principles this week. Use them as the backbone of your culture and watch your practice absolutely transform. Watch your team step up in ways you've never seen before and watch your enjoyment at work grow like nothing else ever before. So anyway, thanks for listening to today's episode of the Savvy Dentist podcast. I hope it sparked a new way of thinking for you about leadership and culture in your practice. Remember, policies try to prevent mistakes. Principles help your team to think, to grow, and to lead. And if this episode was helpful, I'd love for you to share it, to leave a review, or tag us with your key takeaway. So until next time, keep leading with purpose and keep it savvy. Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.